So, what is church? What is church? Is church a physical place that we go to every once a week or twice or occasionally in a week? Or is it a place that we go to worship our God or our gods? Or is it just a physical place that we go to feel the presence and the manifestation of God? So, what actually is church? Because for most people, church is a place that people go to once a week to worship their God or to worship God as they think they worship God. So, what is church? What actually is church? What is church? So, first of all, for me, and what I know is that church is not a place that you go to. Church is not a place that you go to. It is not possible to walk or to drive to church. It is not possible. Church is not a place that you go to. And secondly, you must know that you cannot go to church in that way. You cannot go to church. You cannot walk to church because church is not some physical place. Church is not a physical place. Church is not a physical building. Church is not a physical location. Church is not some place that is far from you. Church is not a place that is removed from you. Church is not a place that you need to go to, that you need to walk to drive to, or that is some place else than where you are at this moment, right now, right here. So you must know you cannot go to church. You cannot go to church. Why am I saying that you cannot go to church? Why am I saying that church is not a physical place? Why am I saying that church is not a physical building? Why am I saying that church is not somewhere that you go to? Because the word church means the people who are called out. The word church or ecclesia, in Greek, church is ecclesia. So ecclesia means people. First of all, it means people, or the ones that have been called out of something into something. Okay? So ecclesia means called out. People who have been called out from something into another thing. And what is it that you're called out from? And what is it that you're called into? So you are being called out of the old mindset, the old patterns of thinking, the old way. You're being called out from the world, but you must know that it is not the physical world. You cannot be called out of the physical world, but you're being called out of the systems and the ways of the world into something new, into a new way of thinking, into a new way of looking at things, into a new way of operating, into a new perspective. So from the old way of thinking, you're being called into another way of thinking. From the world, you're being called into the spiritual reality, into the spiritual knowledge of your being, of who you are. From the old way of looking at God and from the way that you used to know God, the way you used to look at God, you're being called out of that into a new way of knowing and seeing and experiencing yourself as God. Okay, so this is why I'm saying church is not a place that you can walk to, you can drive to, that you can go to every once in a week. Because church is who you are every moment of your life. That is who you are. You are the called out one. You have been called from old ways of thinking into the new way of thinking. So the man that has attained that knowledge, that new way of thinking, that newness of life, that newness of mind, that newness of thought, that spiritual life, that life that is beyond the influence of this outer world, that is the church of God. That is what the church is. The person that has been called out. the person that dwells constantly into the new reality of their being. That is the person that is called church. It is not a physical place that you go to. You know, people say, I'm going to church. Once in a week, you will hear someone say, I'm going to church. You will hear someone say, I am going to worship God in church. You will hear someone say, some people even say and believe that it is in church that they go to encounter God, to meet with God, to know God. And then I ask them the question, if you say, and it is funny because religious people say that God is omnipresent, which means God is everywhere all the time at the same time. And then again, they say they are going to church to meet God, to see God, to experience God, because they believe it is in church, this physical place that God is living, that God is dwelling. And then they say God is omnipresent, and again they say it is in church where God is. They don't believe that God is in the houses where they are living. The house they left to go to church, God is there. The car they are in to go to church, God is there. The road that they're walking on to go to church, God is there. Inside of themselves, God is there. So church is really just the presence of God that exists everywhere. In you, in your house, in the car you're driving, in the road that you're walking in the shops that you go to buy your stuff from, at the grocery stores that you go and buy vegetables from. God is everywhere. So there is no specific point where you can go to meet God. There is no specific location where you can feel the presence of God more than in another location. You cannot feel the presence of God more in some place called church than you can feel that presence in your house or within yourself as you're walking, as you're driving, as you're working, as you're buying stuff, as you're out there shopping. There's no place that God is more concentrated than in other places. God is not more concentrated in one area than he is in another place, because God is always present all the time, everywhere. Okay? All the time. So, church, you must know that is, you go to fellowship. You go to fellowship with other people that you call believers, people that are of the same mind as yours. It is not wrong to fellowship. It is good to fellowship, but do not try to restrict God to a place that you call church. Do not even try to restrict God to a fellowship. Don't even think for a moment that because you call yourselves believers and you are gathered in a certain place, and so you think that that is the only place that you can find God, and that is the only place that God is, that because you're gathered there, God is only there. No, he is there and he's also everywhere else. Okay? So this place called church, it 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 gives people this wrong notion that God is only found there, but God is not found only in church or in that place we call church or people call church. God is omnipresent. And also, you must know that you who is going to church, you are the church of God, because you are the presence of God, because you are the manifestation, the physical manifestation of God, the physical embodiment of God, the physical presence of God. You are going there to fellowship. You are not going there to experience, to encounter God. This is another word religious people do, that we encountered God in church and we are going to encounter God in church. And sometimes in this worship, in these songs that people sing, that they call worship songs, when they sing them, you hear them say that God, we felt God today because of the songs that we sang, because of the strong prayers that we made and long prayers and our cryings and prayers and beggings that we felt God. No, you don't feel God because you prayed. You don't feel God because you sang. You don't even feel God. You just know God, that God is. You experience God because you know that God is. And I am that physical manifestation of what we call God. What we have called God and we have thought to be somewhere else, that we have thought to be found in some building called church, that we have thought to be found in some location, some spiritual location, some physical spiritual center somewhere. What we have called God and we have thought that that is where he is found, he is actually just found everywhere. He exists everywhere. And everything you see and feel around you, that is what God is, because everything is just the manifestation of what God is. Everything is. Somewhere in the Bible, I think in the book of Ephesians chapter 4 verse 6, it says that God is in all things. That God is in all things. Okay? God is in all things. There is nothing that God is not in. There's no rock, no stone that you cannot find God in. God is in the air. God is in the clouds, in the sky. God is in me and you. God is in the sea. God is in the waters. God is everywhere. There's no thing that you can think of that God is not in that thing. So it is wrong to say that we are going to church because that is where God is. In fact, it is wrong to say that we are going to church. There's no physical place that you should call church that is not you. You are the church of God. You are the church. You are the presence. You are the physical presence, the physical manifestation of God. When you know this, then you know that within yourself you can counter God for yourself. You do not need to go and experience and feel God because of some song that people sing. You cannot go and say that we are going to experience and feel God because of some prayer that people say. Go and have fellowship with people of the same mind, but do not think for a second that that is the only place that you can find God. You can find God as in your house, in your houses, as much as you can find him in that building you call church, and as much as you can find him in your car and on the roads and in your neighbor's house and in the shops and in the malls, because God is everything and God is everywhere. All right. So thank you so much for watching this once more. And I promise to come back with better stuff next time. So thank you so much, and make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and see you next time.